the media sort of portrayed it as this disorganized. You had a lot of pot smokers sitting in a camp somewhere. But what was your experience like on the ground?
I mean, it was both of those things.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people had very different Occupy Wall Streets. There was a lot going on, and a lot of different ways for people to get involved. And so you could have two people who spent that whole amount of time investing almost all their time and energy that they had into this project, and they could not know each other and have never met and have been working on totally different ends of it. So yeah, there's no like one representative Occupy Wall Street experience, and when people try to, I think, generalize from their experience of it, they tend to sound a little misinformed, like they don't really know what was going on. So I experienced a certain version of it, but it's probably not one that you still want to talk about on the radio.
Why do you say that?
Because it was an uprising.
Right.
we weren't following the rules, and we were planning how to not follow the rules. And
I see. You're saying you don't want to talk about it on the radio because you don't want to. You don't want to get in trouble or anything like that.
Yeah, or
anything
get anyone else in trouble, or right. It's hard because you want to protect these historical narratives and have fidelity to what it is you experienced, and you want to be able to like share that with further generations and whatever. But it's also like
it's still very near to us.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, Yeah, and the Department of Homeland Security has a long memory, and as do prosecutors.
Right.
One part of my experience was standing up in a courtroom while a prosecutor read things that I had said out loud to the court as a reason I should go to jail. So I'm a little wary about
How old were you at that point?
22, 23, 22, 23. 2011, yeah, 22, 23.
I can't even imagine how I'd be, that would be bone chilling. But I mean, maybe we could speak in generalities, not about your personal experience. One of the reasons why I wanted to ask is, I don't know if you've seen this going around, but someone who claimed to have been like the founder of Occupy Wall Street is now going to Davos, and he's saying he wrote some op-ed talking about how Davos, which is, for people who don't know, gathering of some of the most wealthy and powerful people in the world, and they bandy about ideas, and he's saying, I used to protest these people, now I'm going to join them. Were there like leaders of this movement at the time, or my impression was that it was kind of organic and there wasn't really a head of it?
Yes, Michael White was not the head of Occupy Wall Street. You heard the saying, if you see the Buddha on the road, you got to kill him.
Right.
If anyone says they're the founder of Occupy Wall Street, they're not the founder of Occupy Wall Street. If anyone says I was the leader of Occupy Wall Street, you got the wrong person.
Right.
Because, look, if anyone wants to know what happened, they can file FOIA requests for the Terror, which is the New York Police Department's surveillance unit, and get the footage because they taped everything. Right. So if anyone wants to know what happened in Occupy Wall Street and who was leading what and where everyone was when what went down, they can ask the police because they really do have high-res recordings of everything. I've seen some of them.
Well, that was one of the craziest things that came out of that was that JPMorgan Chase, of course, one of the institutions that people were protesting against, gave millions of dollars to the New York Police Union. And then, of course, had the predictable result of, cracking down on the protests. Were people, it was pretty clear on the ground, right, that there were some shenanigans going on with the police, that, you had infiltrators and so on. Again, I don't want to get too deep into it if you don't want to talk about it, but that was right there in people's faces, right?
Yeah, I mean, do you know about Hipster Cop? There was a famous Hipster Cop who
No.
was a cop who was dressed like, back when we used to call the mean thing to call someone was a hipster. With his like tight sweater or whatever, and this he was on duty. He wasn't undercover. The undercover cops all look the same. They're not very hard to spot. Um, and that was like a whole meme or whatever was Hipster Cop. So yeah, we knew what they were doing. It's not that like they had to be bribed by capitalists, right? It was like Michael Bloomberg was the mayor.
Right.
So when you look at it nationally, we had a Democratic president, and these were mostly protests in cities with Democratic mayors, even though I'm not sure Bloomberg was considering himself a Democrat at the time. But in general, these are cities with Democratic mayors and a Democratic president, who commands the FBI and Homeland Security. And they were not just like ready; they were eager. They were happy to deploy tear gas in all of their main city centers to disperse nonviolent protests. So I think part of what the Occupy movement or sequence was useful for was making that clear what the lines are here and who we're dealing with, and that the police were our enemies. And I think people have a better understanding of that now. And